I did a video some time ago about steroids in arm wrestling, and I was probably ill-informed at the time because I just started arm wrestling. But it's been I've been arm wrestling a little over 4 years now. I'm still ill-informed when it comes to steroids and arm wrestling because it's not something we discuss. To be honest with you, I've never sat down with any arm wrestler and discussed steroids. If they're I've always erred on the side, if somebody looks like they're on steroids, they probably are. That's been my data gathering over the years. But I do know a lot. I don't know a lot about steroids in arm wrestling, but I do know quite a bit about steroids, not from a chemical or a medical standpoint. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert. I'm not an endocrinologist, but I've experimented and used steroids throughout my life to different degrees. I first started trying to take steroids when I was 24, but the first couple times I bought steroids, it was fake, which was evident by the lack of progress and rumors circulating at the time that my source, that shall not be named, John Robb, Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, it was a lot of guys were taking fake steroids then. It was when I was 25 that I finally got my hands on some real stuff. I took a little bit of test as a base, a little bit of Deca, and it was my first time taking what was always the miracle strength drug for me, D-bol. Now, like I say, I'm not an expert on this. I think that everybody reacts to different medications differently. But for context, I was barely bench pressing 315 then, 3 plates. You've probably heard, if you're not a weightlifter, you've heard of 3 plates. That's 315 pounds in the bench press. It's kind of the benchmark at first getting into being a strong person. So I could just barely do that on a good day. Within a couple weeks of taking D-bol, I think I was taking not much, 25 milligrams a day. So they were 5 milligram pills, I remember at the time. Within a few weeks, I was doing 5 or 6 reps. Then it became 10 reps, and I eventually went up to 25 reps on 315. And mostly when I was taking performance-enhancing drugs, I have been clean at different times and managed to do 315 for maybe 10 reps. But when I was into the big numbers, it was performance-enhanced. Now, those are for big muscle groups, muscles, pecs, back, legs. I'm not sure how effective it is for arm wrestling. I really don't. Well, I'm getting some ideas. I'll get back to that. So, yeah, D-bol was the first thing that brought my bench press up to 315 there's been times in my life that 315 I couldn't even feel on the bar. It felt like 3 plates felt like 1 plate. Boom, 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 boom. Those were the times that I was benching over 500 pounds for singles and doubles, and I've probably done a triple with 500. But yeah, so that was when I was 25, so that was early 90s, and I would go take a couple cycles a year. I never stayed on. I didn't even work out then in the summers because I played softball, so I'd take the whole summer off where I'd only train once in a while, and I'd start the summer at 275 pounds. I'd end the summer at 240 pounds, just from playing ball, running around the fields, drinking beer instead of protein shakes, basically. Then I started wrestling in 1998. I was still kind of a casual user. I would use in the middle of a tour. I would use, but if I was off between tours, I would come off. It was 2003 to 2008 when I just started. I was wrestling in Europe then, and steroids were unbelievably inexpensive. I was getting an ampule, which is 1 shot of Sustanon then for $2. An ampule of Winstrol, $1. Deca, they would come in two-shot vials. I think they were $5. So it was crazy. So for the longest time, well, not for the longest time, for 2004, 2005, 2006, I was basically every other day I was taking a shot of Sustanon, a shot of Deca. So there's 250 milligrams of Sustanon, 200 milligrams of Deca, and probably 50 milligrams of D-bol. every second day. Well, the D-bol I'd take every day. An oral drug, steroid, you got to keep in your system. So yeah, that was the only period in my life that I would say that I was abusing steroids. Now there was a reason for it. I just wasn't trying to be a big guy in the gym. I was earning a living as a wrestler. It wasn't always easy to get regular workouts. I would always manage somehow to get in the gym at least 3 or 4 times a week, but I like training 7 days a week. So eating wasn't great. People say, well, you can travel and eat well. Maybe if you're in WWE and you're traveling in a big bus, or or you've got a budget and room, you can have your cooler and your meals and stuff like that. But the way that I wrestled as an independent wrestler, you wrestle them every night, and you've got best case scenario, you've got a minivan with 5 guys in it. You can't. You've got your luggage, you've got your wrestling gear. You can't all have coolers of food too. It's impossible. So we ate fast food, basically. You'd be lucky to get to a grocery store, but in a grocery store, you just grab your day's worth of food, keep it in a bag, non-perishable items. Usually, try to drink milk and eat some prepared pre-cooked meat. That was kind of what we tried to do, but it wasn't ideal conditions for training. And since I was a body guy. I was paid to be a big, strong guy. That was my gimmick. I had to look the part. So steroids were just part of the deal for me. During these times, when I say that I'm not 100% sure how effective steroids are for arm wrestling. Arm wrestling is essentially a strength sport, but it's a different type of strength sport. It's a tendon strength and hand strength, which guys can get their hands really strong without steroids. It's a different type of strength, but the strength that when I was taking those bigger amounts of steroids, the things that I would do that I could do in the gym, that I if I saw somebody doing those things today in the gym, I just came from the gym actually, I'd be very impressed. I could shoulder press 315 pounds behind my neck for 10 reps. I could stand and strict press 365 for probably 6 reps. I could bench press 315 for 20 to 25 reps, 405 for 10 reps, 495, which is 5 plates for 3 reps. I was bent over rows, 500 pounds. I didn't really deadlift much, but I could still deadlift close to 700 pounds, even though I rarely did it. I could squat 600 pounds for a couple reps, rock bottom. These are, if I see somebody, and I do, because I train in the gym with some of the strongest people in the country. Maxime Boudreau and Sam Beliveau own the gym where I train in most days. So I do see people lifting those kind of weights, and it's impressive to watch. I wish I could still do it, but anytime I try to really go heavy on compound movements, I just feel like stuff's tearing apart. The only steroids that I ever took that really gave me a really adverse side effect were Tren and Anadrol. Now, Tren, I hear people talking about Tren all the time. Tren has almost it's like people saying Coke instead of cola. It's people say, oh, he's on Tren. Well, it's kind of become synonymous with steroids. But Tren, for me, and I know everyone's different, but Tren made me a fucking lunatic. I've tried it a couple times. I never lasted more than a couple weeks. One time, I got to a red light in Halifax, and I got so mad that it was a red light because I hit 2 or 3 red lights in a row, and I was temperamental and in a hurry for no reason. I snapped the steering wheel. I just said, fucking, on a rental vehicle. So that wasn't free. That was an expensive, outburst of anger. So I knew that Tren wasn't for me. I tried it again, maybe 10 years after that, and I took one shot of it, and that was no. It makes you anxious, and anxious people react differently. When I'm anxious, I get angry. I'm either angry at myself or angry at everybody else. There's kind of no in between. So life to me isn't worth feeling like that. It's you have to. I have to enjoy my life. I can't walk around angry. You want to fight people all the time or hate myself. And Anadrol. I hear people now saying that, yeah, I take 4 Anadrol a day, and they're 50 milligram pills usually. Well, I call bullshit. It's not the Anadrol we used to take if you're taking 4 a day, because you'd be fucking dead. Back when in the 90s, it was called Anapolin 50, and the max it was 50 milligrams in a pill. The max anyone that I knew took was one, and to take one was brave. Usually you'd bite it in half and just take half of one. Now, the first time I took Anadrol, my bench went from 315 to 10 for 10 to 405 for 10 in like 3 months. It was crazy, to the point that I think that some of the injuries and aches and pains and arthritis that I have now was due to that massive quick strength gain in a quick period of time. Yeah, and I was grumpy all the time. It gives you night sweats. It affects your sleep poorly. That's trying to end Anadrol for me. But people that are taking Anadrol now, I have a funny feeling that what they think they're taking is actually D-bol, and they're getting results from it, but it's not the old Anadrol type results of yesteryear. Because I talk to guys in the gym, and they're not really throwing crazy amounts of weight, and they're saying that they're taking Anadrol, but it's not the Anadrol that I remember for sure. So now, as a 58 going on 59-year-old man who still goes to the gym every day, and I still like to lift a little bit heavy once in a while, my arm wrestling movements, I'd like to go heavy, but the thing is, when you're doing a cupping, it might feel heavy on the first couple reps, but you can probably still do 15 or 20. So to me, 15 to 20 reps is still heavy work, because it's very rare. The only time I go for singles is lifts off the floor, or a hold would be considered a single. So you pull something, and I've got a wrist wrencher, I'll pull it in and I'll hold it for time. And that doesn't seem to affect me. It doesn't affect my neck. It doesn't affect it. I don't feel like muscles are gonna tear apart, because it's such a small area that's from your elbow to your fingers, it's really working. But for me, at my age, I'd be crazy to take big amounts of steroids. So I take testosterone replacement therapy. I don't do it through the doctor. If I'm honest, I'd give myself what the doctor would give me, which is the doctor would normally give 140 milligrams a week for a regular size person. So I think for a guy close to 300 pounds, 200 milligrams is reasonable. I usually stick at about that. Once in a while, I'll jack it up just for a couple weeks, and I find it makes me just a little bit edgy, and I don't really like the feeling, so I'll usually bring it right back down. I did try BPC 157 recently. That's a peptide. It's more for injuries. I think I might try that again in a couple different areas. I'm really struggling with my hip right now, so if I could take a little bit of pain out of there, maybe delay the impending replacement, that would be a good thing. But yeah, so are steroids effective for arm wrestling? Probably, I would imagine so. And I would say that the best guys are probably, especially the tippy top open weight guys, I would say that they're probably the top guys are probably on steroids, but I don't care. It's not tested. I've never had a moral opposition with steroids, and people who do are fools. There's really, if steroids are taken, in a responsible way, and you go to your doctor a couple times a year and get your blood work done, I really don't believe they're dangerous. And people are going to cite, well, this bodybuilder, that bodybuilder. I think if you dig in a little deeper, you'll realize what I've already learned is most of those guys died from party drugs. So, they might have been on steroids too, and that would come up in their blood work. But it's more the party drugs, the cocaine, the painkillers, and somas for getting to sleep. It's stuff like that's killing a lot of young bodybuilders. And actually, bodybuilders is a different thing than the wrestlers. The wrestlers, it was all for partying. I don't think one wrestler's died from steroids. Some bodybuilders, probably because of the extreme amount of everything they take, including insulin and GH. Their heart would have been double the size that it probably should be. So probably they're dying partly because of steroids. But I think if you use steroids reasonably, I've never really known anyone to have any problems. It's like anything else. If you abuse something, you're going to pay for it. If you're reasonable, you'll probably be all right. Anyway, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next one.